you are in the world, whatever time it is in the world. I hope you're enjoying it. I am finishing up my Sunday here, and I was able to jump on live here this week. This is the second live. I did a live yesterday, which was a little off schedule, but I had a bit of free time, and I said, hey, let me jump on live real quick, and then I'm keeping up with my normal schedule here. About 10 minutes late. I'm working on that. I try not to hold myself to too hard of a standard to make sure I'm in here on time, but I do try to hit that time because I understand people may be waiting on that. So if you were waiting, I apologize, but thank you for sticking with me, and let's kind of get into it. This week I wanted to repot this begonia, and this is, look at it. I mean, I kind of don't even want to touch it. It's in this nice little pot here, but you can see the roots already starting to come out of the bottom of this pot. So I know that it's time to get this out of this pot. I picked this up at the Birmingham Botanical Garden. I went over there about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I saw this, and look at this. This is Begonia metallica, and I've looked it up several times, and that's kind of what's on the tag that came with it. It said Begonia metallica. The thing about it, when I look online and I look at other metallicas, they just aren't they don't look as good as this one. This one looks, look at that, the texture on those leaves. It's all about the foliage. And so this is a cane style begonia, right? It's going to grow up really tall. I've had some of these get about a meter tall before. And so, hold on, I want to show you another begonia that I have, because hold on just a second. Let's talk begonias. So for me, begonias are all about the foliage. I have several, I have a couple others in larger pots. The pots are a little too big and too hard to move. But this is Begonia rex. That's the family. Look at that. Look at the foliage on this one. And it has been doing really well. Actually, I stuck this plant directly under a grow light. And when I did, it really took off. So that means that I was not supplying enough light for this one. But look at the color, that burgundy. It's getting the light now. It is doing well. Look at all these new, on this side here, new shoots right here. So it's gonna be a new leaf. Next to it is another one right there. That's gonna be a new leaf. And so this one, again, it was not doing well. I had to get straight on the watering. But most importantly, over the last few weeks, it's been sitting directly under a grow light. And the part of the plant that has been under that light is really, now I got a little bit of where it had, before I didn't water it, you can see a little bit of damage on some of these leaves. So not a perfect garden. There's a little bit of damage on the leaf here. But this is looking really well. This one's not gonna grow tall. It's gonna be more of a bushy. It's gonna get more bushy. This one is more of a cane style, and it is going to grow much taller than this. It's not gonna get a lot thicker. Like that stem is not gonna get tremendously thicker than this, at least in the other versions, the variants that I have. But I'm excited to get this. I picked this up last year at a flower show. I can't even remember which one it was at this point. I think it may be at Shrewsbury Flower Show. And I picked this up. It was not anywhere near this size, but it's been doing well. It's been doing really good. It's kind of perking up. I'm gonna sit it up to get it back up under the grow light again. Semi-hydroponic pot is doing well in that pot. But this one is the one that I'm gonna work on and work with here tonight, where I'm gonna take all the soil off of it and get it into one of my semi-hydroponic pots and get it set up under one of the lights. I like begonia. They tend to be a bit tender. Like this is considered a tender perennial, which means you absolutely can't let it get near any type of cold or anything like that. It just won't survive. It can't handle those rougher conditions. Just setting up my semi-hydroponic pot here. But yeah, you don't want that begonia to get anywhere. I'm gonna treat this completely as a house plant, right? I'm not gonna do anything about as far as trying to move this plant outside in the summer. No, I'm gonna keep this. This is gonna be an indoors plant for me. And I think this pot, because if you look at the size pot, like this is the size that it's in, and I'm gonna move it up to this size. I think that's a good jump up. You know, you don't wanna get too big, but I think that's a good step up for a plant this size. Again, going to get all this soil off of it and move it into a pot with Lacusa Pond. I've been hearing a lot of people say, oh, they don't like pun, and pun doesn't work too well for them. I do have some neem oil. Where's it at? Yeah, I have some. I have it mixed. I buy it as a concentrate, and I do use that. The only problem that I have as far as insects or pests, which would be mealybugs, and they don't respond well to that. But what they do respond well to is a concentrated isopropyl alcohol. And so that's what I use more than a neem oil. I think the neem oil would work potentially with the mealybugs, but I know that the isopropyl alcohol will work. I'm just looking for my scoop. Don't see it. Just go old school, just kind of dig it up with my hand here. But yeah, neem oil is really good. It takes care of a lot of other potential pests that you may have. I try not to use anything that's too harsh as far as chemical insecticides. I try to stay away from that. I don't tend to go down that path very often. I'm going to sweep the floor in here now. Yeah, I do have a lot of plants, but it didn't start like this. I've been kind of growing this collection over the last couple of years. You start out with just one, and then you get another one, and then you get another one. The key, I guess, is not so many that I buy. It's just that as I've continued to do this, I'm just getting better at actually keeping the plants alive. So I think before I may have been buying about roughly the same amount of plants, and then they would die, which is unfortunate. But now the plants are thriving, they're staying around, they're living longer, they're growing, and they're going to get a lot bigger. Some of them have doubled and tripled in size already. I think I attribute a lot of that to a couple things. One, I'm still a huge fan of semi-hydroponic pots and using this pond material. This is this soil substrate. I'm a fan of it. It's working for me. And a lot of people are saying it's kind of gimmicky, you know, go back to the classic. And if you want to go classic, you want to go with a nice soil mix inside of a terracotta pot, I would not blame anyone for doing that because it will work. It's classic. So nice roots here. They're starting to spiral at the bottom here at the pot. So that lets you know when it's time to change. If you pull out a plant out of a pot and there's no roots at the base, right? Nothing at the base, and soil starts to fall off, then that's telling you that that plant is not rooted in very well. It may not be time to repot it just yet. But this one has some nice roots. You can see them. Little smell. It should be an earthy smell. It should smell clean, fresh, and that's what it smells like. As far as just smell like soil, that's what it should smell like. If it smells sour and you're getting another funky smell in there, something not smelling right, then you may want to think about the fact that you may be overwatering and you could have a case of root rot. So I don't need this soil. I'm just gonna knock this off here real gingerly. You just kind of press it. All I do is press it and turn it in my hands, and that breaks that soil loose and it falls off. Because what I want to do is I want to get all of this soil away from the root, because I want to plant this not in soil, but in this soil substrate, which is really just kind of like these little pebbles. And that works really well. I have found a lot of success with using that. So I'm removing the dirt, because you don't want to put the dirt in there. If you keep the dirt and you put the dirt inside of the pebbles, not dirt, it's soil. If you put the soil inside of the pebbles, hello from Russia, how are you doing? If you put it inside of the different substrate, it could hold too much moisture, and again, you end up with root rot, and your roots will rot and you could lose your plant. So you want to get as much of this soil off of here as you possibly can, just gingerly, kind of just teasing it, you know. And if you do this right after you water your plant, your hands are going to get muddy. So let it dry out a little bit. Give it a couple days. If you want to switch substrates, let it dry out, not too dry, right? You don't want to kill the plant, but let it dry out, and that soil will just fall right off. And that's what I'm doing. I just want to get this soil, just kind of keep working it. But I love the foliage on this begonia. And begonia tend to be, if you can get one to grow for you, they tend to be pretty easy. Hello from Indiana. Hello, Jordan. How you doing? Yeah, it's a fair amount of plants here. I see people all the time, I think, you know, who have a lot more. But I'm not going to say there's not a lot, because when you look around, like there's these in the middle here. And I just kind of been collecting them. that whole pot of these geraniums, I picked those up out of the woods. And they grow really well. Everyone else grows their geraniums for the most part outside, but that's been live in that pot there for like 2 years, completely indoors. So you can, in some cases, put outdoor plants inside and put inside plant outdoors. Because if you think about it, like all plants started as outdoor plants, right? They didn't start out growing indoors, they all started outdoors. And then some of them just can adjust to temperatures and conditions and humidity inside of our homes, and they will grow in your home. Typically, I have the most success with plants that would be called exotic or tropical. This room, the humidity is low right now, but the temperatures in here is 71 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's pretty warm. I keep this room warm. There's a heater. So this room kind of stays warm. There's a fish tank in here, which is releasing a lot of water and moisture into the air. So I try to keep the humidity up, which is replicating more of a tropical type environment. And so when you're able to replicate those conditions in your home, plants that grow in those conditions do really well. So succulents can do well, a lot of tropicals do well. And I've been doing pretty good also with a lot of cacti. I don't grow a lot of orchids, and people have been asking about those, but I don't think I keep enough humidity in here, in this room in particular, to grow a lot of orchids. Now, there are hardy orchids that can grow outside, and then there are the more pretty ones that you see in your garden centers or your grocery stores or your shopping centers. Okay, so to get more of this soil off, that's just mostly just all roots. Then give it a good shake. To get even more off, I'd have to go and wash this off with water, and I could just rinse a lot more of that soil off. But I don't think that I need to do that. With just a little bit of soil left around those roots, I think that's okay. Now, the reason is because those roots hairs, they have beneficial bacteria and fungi already connected to them. So I don't want to wash all that off. The beneficial fungi, which I'm going to add some more, this is mycorrhizal fungi. And what this fungus does is it grows, this is the brand I use. I'm not pushing the brand, I'm just saying I use this brand. I've been using it for a couple years. This fungus, the way it works is it grows in the soil and it connects to the root hairs of the plants, and it extends out through the soil. And the main things, in this case, is not soil, right? It's just different substrate. But the main thing that it does is it allows the plant to absorb more nutrients. And so can the plant survive without it? Yes, it can, but almost all plants in the wild have some form of symbiotic relationship with fungus. And so in this case, we're replicating that and adding a different type of fungus that will really assist this plant with absorbing in nutrients. So that's a fungus that does that. Mycorrhizal fungi. And here is a bit of bacterium that does the exact same thing. What it does is same thing. Grows, attaches to those root hairs, and facilitates the plant with absorbing more nutrients. Just gonna shake it a little bit in there, get it down around the roots. And to test this out to see if it works, you have to kind of take a plant, use it, take another plant, don't use it, put them in the same conditions. And it's anecdotal, but I have found success with it. I don't spend a lot of extra money on it. And if I forget to do it, I can always top dress it, put it on the top later on. Hello, Moon. You were here yesterday. Glad to see you back. So it's really cool. Today in the UK, the temperature was about 66. Well, I was over in Cambridge, right north of Cambridge, and I went to an abbey over there, which is Anglesey Abbey, which is not really an abbey, but it's a home, and it has a beautiful garden, and all the daffodils are blooming, the crocus were blooming. No tulips yet, a little early for tulips, but the daffodil, crocus, and a lot of iris were blooming, and wow, it was really impressive. And so I filmed that today, and it'll be a video that goes up on the channel a little later on. But because I'm really focusing on growing daffodils, I think those look really well. They're really pretty plants, And yes, you see them all the time, that yellow, but you can get some cool colors in there. I have videos coming. I did a live yesterday. I talked about that. And so I'm really liking daffodils right now, this year, especially right now, this particular growing season. And so what I'm doing is just kind of focusing in on those. And for people who don't know as much about it, because you may decide you want to grow it, they're not that hard to grow. So I got a couple videos coming out about that, a little bit of how to. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. I don't have my scoop, so I'm just kind of doing this by hand. Not the best way to do it, but it's working. All right. So let's plant it at roughly the same depth that it was planted before. I think it's okay if it goes a little bit up the stem. Let me see. There we go. And I don't want to put this too high up because I don't want it to fall over. I don't want to have to stake it. And the soil substrate is pretty firm. I may give it another ½ inch just to make sure that it has enough firmness around it, because I don't want to have to stake it. And it will straighten up a little bit once it starts to grow and those roots start to spread around into the substrate. Okay, a nice little pat down, just kind of press that down in place. Make sure it's firm around the roots. Now that's something a lot of people don't think about, but you do want to always, when you plant something, you do want to press the soil down firmly around the roots, because you don't want to create air pockets around the roots. That's not good for the plant. Things can get in there and grow, and so you don't want to leave air pockets around the roots of the plants. Just kind of press that down, and there we go. So what I want to do now is I will do this off camera. It's looking pretty good. Plant still looks good. It's starting to lean a little bit to one side, and so I want to get this directly under some grow lights, because you can see, and it's just something you always have to be careful of, especially when you're growing indoors. Are your plants leaning towards the light? And that's why I try to keep a lot of lights on back here. But if you look at the way this is growing, it's going up, and then it's tilting over this way. It's tilting over that way. That means that the majority of the light that this plant has been getting has been coming from this side. You see the leaves, how they're all facing, not all of them, but the majority of the leaves are facing this side. So I want to get a grow light more directly above it. And that, because this, look at that, top of that stem is starting to tilt over and lean over. I don't want that. I want this plant to just grow straight up, and I want to straighten it up. Now you can take a stick or a cane here and put to the side of this, and you can stake it, and that'll help it stand up straight. But if you don't fix your light problem, it's going to stand up straight, and then it's still going to lean. All your leaves are still going to be on one side. The way to solve this in the long run, one, you can stake it for stability and to try to make sure that you keep it upright. But another thing you can definitely do, and what you should do, is focus on light. Light is the problem. This is the beautiful back side of the plant. Those leaves are pretty. So even on the front side, you get this textured, glossy green leaf, and it's just so textured, it looks really nice. But then on the back side is this burgundy. It's not as textured, right? It's not as shining and quite as much, but on both sides, all about the foliage. This is done. I will water it in, pick a really great spot. I think I'll go straight down there. Or actually bought more lights, because I realized this room looks like there's a lot of light in here because there's lights all around, with the windows all around. You get a lot of sunlight, but it's just not enough light coming in here. And since I've been supplementing, my plants have really been growing well. Done with this begonia. We can set it to the side. This begonia is doing well, as I mentioned. Just kind of do a little bit of tidying up of this plant real quick. Have a couple of leaves that I just want to take off. Some of this old growth. Just gonna get in here, take off some of these old leaves. If they look like they're not doing well, like this one in here, most of that's already. Gonna go down to the base Just snip that out. That wasn't, look at that. That wasn't doing a whole lot for the plant. So take that one off. I think that may be the only one. There are roughly three different crowns in here. So you can think about it as like 3 different bulbs. There's one here, and one right here. But I'm really happy with this plant. This plant has really bounced back. A few weeks ago, it was not doing that good. The whole thing was looking like this. You said it's the one leaf is just kind of hanging down low. This leaf, I think, is not getting quite as much light. But as this plant is beginning to get more light, it's taking on a more burgundy color. Let's say this leaf was on the back side, not getting as much light. You can see the coloration there. And then look at the color of these other leaves up top. On the top, they look a little the same. Just on that bottom, you can just see like there's a texture difference here. This is not as textured and definitely not standing up. So these on this side, getting a lot more light. I want to get this more directly under light. Not much else I could do with that. It's doing pretty good. I fertilized with, let me show you, Miracle-Gro all-purpose continuous release plant food. Been using this stuff for years. Miracle-Gro, I don't go all organic, and so I try to stay away from the harsh insecticides. And but I will use some chemical fertilizers. A lot of people don't like that, but I find this slow release fertilizer, it works for me, right? And so I'd already fertilized this plant yesterday. What I do is with this substrate, just take a little bit of this, put it in my hand, and just kind of top dress it, put it around the plant. And when I water it in around that fertilizer that I just put there. And it slowly releases down into the substrate. I try not to water my plants from the top. I try to get them from the side because I don't want to get moisture. I don't want mold around the top of the plants. You have to be careful. I have some plants that have to be watered from the bottom, which is the cyclamen. I have some cyclamen back here. And if you water those from the top, moisture could get down into around the base of those leaves and stems, and it'll rot the plant out. So you have to kind of make sure you think about those things. That's a little more detailed, right? Some plants you have to be worried about that. Some plants are just troopers and they don't care. A lot of the agapanthias, which more of an outdoors plant, doesn't care. Amaryllis doesn't seem to bother too much, just don't leave it sitting in water. Okay, so that's the second begonia. Just did a little touch up of that. Again, beautiful coloration. I love adding in burgundy plants. I will show you another one that's been doing really well because I guess at this point I'm showing off the burgundy plants that I'm enjoying growing. Now this is a philodendron, one of my mystery philodendrons. I picked this up for like £5 at B&Q, and it was really, if it was £5, if it cost that much. And it didn't have a name on it. I've asked people what they think the name of it is. I'm gonna have to repot this one. You can see what's happening here. This plant has grown up, and it's grown up this way, and the stem, the stalk is here, 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 here. And it's kind of up to about right here. And what I don't want is I don't want this plant to start leaning and falling over. Same type problem as I mentioned before. But this is one of my favorite philodendrons. Again, I wish I knew exactly which philodendron it is. I don't know exactly which one it is, but I love the burgundy. You know, I remember when I was in school, I got into a discussion with one of my science teachers, and they said all leaves are green. And I was like, no, not all leaves are green. And you know, when you're in school, you probably shouldn't argue with your teacher, but I knew that not all leaves are green. Now you can see that this leaf has a green tint to it on the top, but look at this little new leaf right here. I mean, this is new leaf. It hasn't hardened off yet. Very soft, very tender, but look at how burgundy that is. And the color of the leaf is dependent on the color of the pigment in the chlorophyll. So this has a lot of burgundy pigment. What our eyes see is a burgundy pigment, but yeah, this chlorophyll in here gives you a beautiful color. And this is a young leaf. Yeah, I've looked at the plant identifiers and I just haven't been able to definitively identify which one this is. Some names I've gotten a chocolate, this, that, or the other, ruby, philodendron, but honestly, I don't care. I mean, I do care. I would like to know, but the fact that it's just growing so well for me, and I like calling it my mystery philodendron. But look at that. And as the leaves harden off, they take on this more dull, slightly more dull color, but just really a firm leaf. But this one is soft. But this is my favorite philodendron. And when I repotted this about 2 months ago, and it was nowhere near this size. This plant has really is doubled in size. Now, the thing about the semi-hydroponic pots, again, these pots, the way they work is you water them, and there's a little reservoir at the bottom, and it holds water. And there's a little meter that shows right here, and it should be red or white. And this is low, this is medium, and this is high, and you don't see a little meter. I don't either. That means this plant needs to be watered. The water level in this plant is too low. And that's the main reason I like my semi-hydroponic pots. If you look at this one, if you can see that meter, there is a red meter there. I can see it. That lets me know that this has water in it and it doesn't need to be watered. This meter, I don't see that little red line. So this needs to be watered. Let me put this one back because it's kind of big and it's taking up a lot of space. Now, switching colors entirely, I did a lot of burgundy, but this is a Monstera Thai Constellation, and I am so in love with this plant. It has doubled in size as well. I repotted it up, probably about a month ago. I repotted this one, but I love the variegation. Look at this leaf, right? So you get this green, you have this big splash of white here. And then this whole half of this side of this leaf is predominantly white. The only thing you don't want is an all white leaf. Now you can have like one all white leaf on a plant, but if you have all white leaves on a plant, that plant's gonna die because it's not able to actually, it needs the chlorophyll. So that white means that there's a lacking of chlorophyll. So if you have a plant with no chlorophyll, it can't process the sun, can't get enough energy, probably not gonna make it. But this is Thai Constellation. And it's starting to get, this is the largest leaf that I have on it. And this is like a new leaf as well. It's the largest leaf I have. And it's starting to get that Monstera look where Monsteras get big and they have these big, beautiful leaves. This is still really small as far as how large this plant can get. In the wild, this plant can get about 20 meters tall and roughly not quite 20 meters wide. I don't think it gets quite that wide, but it can grow really tall. So these are a tropical plant. In the home though, you typically only get maybe 2 to 3 meters. I've seen some really large ones. It will take a while for it to get that big, but it's doing good. Typically, once it gets that large, people tend to cut off a lot of leaves. They'll propagate it to kind of keep it into the right size. But this, look at this. So this is another one of my favorite plants here. I guess ended up showing off some of my favorite plants. But yeah, the burgundy, the variegated, those are some of my favorite house plants. Let me put this one back. Okay, so moving on, what I want to get into next is, those were all my house plants. I'm going to reuse this soil, and I have some other fresh soil here. I want to plant some petunias. I have some petunias. Now we're talking annuals, which means that every year you have to buy the seeds, replant the plant. They don't survive year over year. I much prefer perennials, which means you buy the plant and every year that plant will come back. There are tender perennials, which means that, you know, they're not as hardy. They may only come back if the conditions are right. And then there are the more hardy perennials, which can take a lot more over the course of the year and still via a bulb or a crown or, you know, a root complex, they're able to come back the next year. Petunias, which the one I want to plant is right here, these won't come back. They're annuals. Every year you have to replant your petunias. But this is a beautiful, it's a double bloom. This is double period orchid mist. And it's a light lilac purple. And it's really pretty. And I said, you know what, I bought some that were already sprouted. I have those in a windowsill over here. And again, it's way too cold to put petunias out. It's gonna get down around 40 degrees Fahrenheit here tonight. And they can still drop below freezing. But those conditions and temperatures are way too cold for petunias. They are sun, heat loving plants. But this is a good time of year to get them started. Here in another week or two, I'm gonna start some of my outdoor vegetables, which means some tomatoes. But right now, I wanna get these petunias into the ground. And I have a nice soil substrate that I'm mixing into here. I wish petunias were perennials as well. that would be great. I love petunias, and I really love perennials because the main thing is, again, you buy the plant one time, next year it comes back. You don't have to rebuy that same plant. I'm trying to save myself some money and the energy and effort of also replanting the plant over and over again. Now, I'm not against annuals, right? I have some annuals that I grow. A couple, I was looking over there in the windowsill. One type of annual that I love to grow, which are marigolds. I repotted up some of those from seed just a couple weeks ago, and they're growing in the windowsill right now, waiting on the temperature to warm up. The key thing is, you've heard me talk about it a lot here on this live, is lighting. That's the main thing, especially when you grow these plants inside, indoors, outdoor plants, growing them indoors. You have to make sure you keep enough lighting in it. So if you don't have enough lighting, the plants will grow really, really tall, trying to reach for lighting. They'll fall over, they'll flop over. And so you want to make sure that you have enough lighting. That's what I'm concerned with on marigolds, that I have them in a window. And at first, I don't think they were getting quite enough light. They got a little leggy, which means the stems got a little long. And so they're not the best looking marigolds. I put a grow light kind of close directly over them to kind of bring them back in, to stop them from growing tall, and to try to get them to grow wide. All right, let's open up these petunias. I actually haven't planted petunias in several years. They're pretty easy though, if I remember correctly. All right. Oh, this is just a card here. Just kind of give you some details. A great way to sow fine seeds, which need careful handling they need careful handling to avoid crushing. And so, yeah, these are some really, really small seeds. Now, what I like to do is, oh boy, they didn't give me very many. I don't know if you can make that out. There's like maybe 10 seeds. Okay, so what they did was, the seeds are so small and they're so fine. I wish I bought 2 of these now, because this is not a lot of seeds. It doesn't say on the package that you're only going to get about 10 seeds. And whereas with your marigolds, you end up with way more seeds of these than you can ever really kind of plant. But they put a coating on this seed. That yellow that you see, that's not the actual seed. They coated the seed to make the seed a little larger, just so it's easier for you to handle. What I want to do, oh wow, these are really tiny, is I'm going to put them into these cell blocks here. These grow trays, they have these individual cells, and I want 1 seed per cell. Wow, these are really tiny. So I'm just going to plant 1. Let me see if I could adjust the camera angle down so you can see. That's up and that's down. And what I like to do is get the seeds all placed first. You're not going to be able to see them, they're really tiny, but I'm doing 1 per cell. And once I get the seeds all placed, then I will go back and lightly press them down into the soil. Not too deep, think 1/4 inch at most. Seeds this small, if you stick them, you push them too deep down into the soil, they'll never really grow up out of that. Okay, just a few more seeds than I thought. So this is 10. I'm just picking up one. They're in my hand here, really tiny. Picking up one tiny little seed, one seed per cell. And especially if you're growing them like this, where you have these growth cells, if you have a tray that's just soil, then you want to separate them out. And the great thing about having the ones with these growth cells is that it stops the roots from growing together. You really don't want the roots to grow together, because then you have to kind of tease those apart. You know, with young plants, they're very tender and they can't take a whole lot of manhandling, you know, shoveling them around, breaking them apart, breaking off roots, snipping off little leaves. Young plants are very tender. You know, once they get older, they can handle a lot more. That's 15, and we're 16 and 17. So that's one tiny little seed. But I'm just kind of press that down and then put just a tiny bit of soil, just a lightly pressing down, and just a little bit of soil back across the top of it. Not going very deep at all, because I understand the seeds this small, you don't want to go too deep. You know, if I did like an inch down, they probably couldn't make it back up. Whereas I'll show you in just a minute a different type of seed that you would plant much deeper. But these really tiny seeds, just with the end of my finger, pressing down about a 1/4 inch, and then just kind of covering it back over with soil, and 17 of those planted. Now, that's a squash, Black Beauty. I think here in the UK they call them courgettes. Look at the difference in the seeds. And it's cool for me to plant these in the same tray because they're gonna grow so differently. I'll easily be able to tell which is which. I don't think it's maybe a little too early, but that's okay. I'll go ahead and get these planted. Whereas those seeds were tiny. Look at that. Plenty of size on these seeds. And seeds of this size, pretty much still the same technique. I'm gonna skip the rest of that row. But what I like to do still is, now you could soak these overnight, or you could snip the ends off of them. Both of those will assist with the seed germinating. I'm not gonna do that this time. I tend to find that I don't have much problem with these germinating under the conditions that I'm gonna be growing them under here, which is gonna be a lot of moisture. I'm gonna put a top over this, it's gonna have high humidity. I don't think I have a problem. But this is going roughly, you can just kind of press that seed all the way down in there, about an inch down into the soil, and that is going to grow really well. It's going to give me a lot of squash over the course of the summer. I like to grow vegetables, and I mix my vegetables and my ornamental plants together in the same beds, because to be honest with you, I don't have time to have the vegetables growing over here and I go and work with that bed, and then I have the ornamental plants growing over there and I go and work with that bed. I put it all together. And it kind of is a beautification. It looks good. It makes the vegetables look good to have. Well, if I planted 2 in a cell, I think I may have messed up on one of those. I think I may have planted 2 in one of those. It's okay. They'll both come up, and I may just leave those together. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do. Let's get this back up. Oh, Miss Lady June, how you doing? Sorry, I didn't catch you jumping in there. But yeah, so this now, a key thing here, and I used to make this mistake all the time. So on this end are those squash seeds, big seeds, heavy seeds. And if I put water across the top of these, it won't create a problem. But you saw how tiny those petunia seeds were. And so if I get just get this really quick. This is my watering can. I like it. I have two of them just the same. So if I fill my watering can and then I come in and I pour water across the top of this, it is going to lift those seeds, especially those tiny ones, and it's going to push them around in any which direction. They're going to go somewhere everywhere. So definitely don't want to do that. What I tend to do with these is I actually water unless I could produce a very fine mist of water that will not disturb this soil, because I'm not going to put any grit across the top. If I did a light layer of grit, really fine pebble across the top, then maybe I could water from the top, but I'm not going to water from the top. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to take this tray, because this tray is sitting inside of another tray which holds the moisture, right? And it holds the water. I'm going to water this from the bottom. I'm going to fill that about a quarter to halfway up with water, and the water will soak up, be wicked up from the bottom, and it'll get the top wet, and I'll do it that way. I have a clear top that I will put on this, and I'll put the clear top on it. It's over there somewhere. I'll go and find it. And what that will do is increase the humidity, create some nice growing conditions, especially when you're trying to start those seeds off. Now, the squash seeds, they're sturdy. I find that squash seeds, squash, cucumbers, and things of that sort, like those really large seeds, they tend to do pumpkin seeds. They tend to germinate really well. They just have a lot of vitality inside that larger seed, and they're coming up within a few days, growing big, throwing off leaves. And these smaller plants just need a little more time and a little more care. So I'll add the water to this as soon as this is done. I will show you real quick before we get off here the petunias that I've been working on. Okay. So here are two of the petunias that I bought as live plants. We just planted some petunia seeds. All the seeds that came in this packet, we just planted those. That's what we planted. This petunia plant, it's gonna be a nice, look at that double petaled white. I bought this live, and it's doubled in size. It's doing really good. Have this in a bamboo compostable pot. It's sitting in a tray that has a little bit of water at the bottom. Again, I'm not watering from the top. I am watering these from the bottom. The moisture is wicked up into the plant. I just don't want to disturb this at all by watering it and washing the soil off of the roots or creating problems for the plant. This one is doing really good. That's what it looks like. And here's another one. Was not this big a week ago. Those lower leaves there, this is a petunia. Petunias tend to be like ground coverage. It's gonna grow, it's gonna stay low to the ground, but it's gonna throw off a lot of leaves, especially as your summer really starts to heat up. Through those, what you call those dog days of summer, those really hot summery days, petunias, they shine. Through that part of the summer, they do really well. Now, they can wilt if you don't water them in the hottest part of the summer. Early summer, still got a lot of moisture, they do pretty good. But they really grow well when the summer gets hot, when that baking hot summertime. Petunias do really well, especially if they're watered. If you water them on a regular basis, they'll grow really well for you. So, hey, if you want to have any yeah, so do I have a mister? Yes, I do have a mister. Here's a mister. A little dirty. Let me see, I haven't used it in a while. Let's see how it works. I'll try it on this petunia, see what I get. Oh, that's aggressive. Yeah, so with those tiny seeds, if I am gonna water this from the top, I'm just hitting this with the mister, just kind of misting. I'll pick the tray up just so you can see it here a little bit. But you just want to make sure that whatever water you're adding to it, you're not being aggressive to the point where you're disturbing the seeds, especially those really tiny seeds. Just gonna mist it in a little bit, get the top layer just damp, and then the rest of the moisture I will add from the bottom by adding water to the bottom of the tray. I don't want to try to mist it all the way to wet it with just the mister, but yeah. This was a cool little mister. I bought it because it has that old school look, kind of a metallic. I don't know if it's not copper, maybe it's like a brass or something. But I can adjust the nozzle just a little bit. I can kind of turn it just a little bit to get a little bit more of a misting in on that. Now, another key thing with seeds is that you don't want to fertilize your young plants. A lot of people feel as though, oh, I just planted this tray, let me add some fertilizer to it. A slow release fertilizer, maybe it'll be okay. I wouldn't advise it. Now, you can buy soil that already has a bit of fertilizer in it, and they sell that as well. That's typically okay. But if you're using a liquid fertilizer, to just let the plants get established, let them grow. They have a certain amount of energy already kind of pushing them through from within the seed, like these larger seeds. They have energy within that. And so that'll kind of get that plant going and growing. It just needs that sunlight, it just needs the moisture, but you don't want to over fertilize. You can burn those plants really bad. And that's the reason these slow release fertilizers came out, is because people used to over fertilize and you'd burn the plant. And what I mean by burn the plant, if you never burnt the plant before, what it actually looked like is, well, it looks like this. You have leaves on your plant. This wasn't burned. This came from actually, like, I don't think I watered it. But just as an example, this is crispy. So what this means is you burn your plant, put too much fertilizer on it, this petunia, these leaves will start to curl and turn brown. And that plant has too much fertilizer on it. It's actually killing the plant. Too much of a good thing is bad. But if you burn your plant, you'll start to see those tips of those leaves, they'll go brown, they'll curl up. And a lot of times there's not a whole lot you could do once that happens. So you want to try to not have that happen in the very beginning. What you definitely don't want to do is add any more fertilizer to it. So just try not to over fertilize. But yeah, but these young plants just getting started right now, this doesn't need any fertilizer at all, right? These at this size, you can start to think a little bit of a liquid fertilizer. I don't know if I'd add it to it just yet, to be honest with you. A bit of slow release that's going to slowly release into the plant over the course of, this is 6 months, feeds up to 6 months. So a slow release, which is not going to put enough fertilizer on that plant to burn it immediately, that's something you definitely want to be concerned about. So be careful with fertilizer. Fertilizer is necessary, definitely if you want to get those large, blousy plants that are just big and growing really, really well. A lot of fertilizer will help, but over fertilizing your plant, especially if you use the exact same type of fertilizer over and over again, it ends up in some cases hurting and hindering what you're trying to do. And so I could talk a little bit more about fertilizer and have some other type of fertilizers here. I don't want to go into that too much, but I just wanted to bring that up to say, especially when you're starting your seeds, do not add fertilizer. It's not necessary at the very beginning. If it's already in the soil, you bought a soil mix that has a little bit of fertilizer in it, that's fine. Starting to get a bit of yellowing. So you're misting twice a day, turning the heat up in your apartment. Your palm. So I have a banana tree and I'm so ready to get it back outside. It has been doing pretty good here indoors because I want to actually try to see if I can actually get some bananas. So I knew that if I let it go dormant and then bring it back, I may not get to bananas this year. So I grew it all last summer and it has some similar conditions, similar to the palm, and it's doing okay. I try to keep enough moisture on it, try to keep a light on it. I have a grow light sitting directly over it. It's not yellowing, but I'm just noticing that the leaves are not quite as perky as I would like. like, and it's just the leaves are really big. At one point, I think one of these leaves almost 2.5 feet, right at 3 feet long. So you need a lot of light for a plant with a leaf with 3 foot long leaves. And I'm just not producing enough light for that plant right now. Luckily though, in about another month and a half, I will be able to move the banana tree and my canna and my agapanthus and a lot of my outdoor plants that I brought in. I even have a jalapeno pepper. I'll be able to move all of those back outside. We're talking jalapeno pepper again. I'll show that one on another day. This is getting a little long, about 50 minutes, and I've enjoyed everyone who's kind of jumped in this live, stayed with me. I appreciate that. I do these every Sunday, 7:30 British Standard Time. That is the time that I aim at. Sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later, but I'm trying to stick that 7:30 British Standard Time. So I appreciate everyone jumping on live with me. They're hating on your plants. Yeah. And I think you said you're in Minnesota, so opening a window may not be an option for you. Yeah, you may have to mist it, try to keep the humidity up. But yeah, I don't know. And you're going to run into some problems if the temperature is too high, the humidity is too low. It's all about trying to replicate in the home what that plant is experiencing in a wild environment. That's what you're trying to get as close to. When you can't replicate that properly, you'll start to notice it in, as you say, your plant is yellowing, too much heat. You'll notice it in your plant. So you definitely have to kind of stay on it. But again, hopefully, oh, you're in Ohio. Okay, you keep a window open. That definitely helps. And in like 2 more months, Ohio's going to warm up. You can get that palm back outside. I'm saying 2 months. I'm not too sure. Is it about 2 months for your palm to warm, for your temperatures to warm up in Ohio enough for you to put your plant outside? Do you ever put it outside? Or do you keep it indoors year round? Because I don't know how you care for it over the course of the year. But if you put it outside in the summer, then it should grow pretty well. Okay. Hey, I appreciate everyone jumping in. I'll try to be back here with you next Sunday. Like and subscribe to the channel, guys. It helps me, I don't know. If you don't subscribe, it's fine. I'll still keep doing this. I'm enjoying it. I'm doing this mainly because I'm having fun with this. It gives me a deeper, closer connection to my plants. I spend more time with them. I'm talking to them. They're getting cuddled on. Yeah, it's kind of going well. So I appreciate everyone jumping on live, guys. And until next time, next week, see you later. Take care.